is a video, Money in the Bank reaction. Now, the Money in the Bank pay-per-view was the first pay-per-view where Vince McMahon didn't smoke crack or do some cocaine before making a business decision. He actually was 100% sober last night, and he actually was 100% sane because Triple H and Stephanie and Shane McMahon were probably, before last night, going to have him committed to an asylum or something like that. So it's good to see he still has his sanity and he's still sharp as a tack and he's still a genius, Vinnie Mac. Now, because if not, if the pay-per-view would have went in another direction, Vinnie Mac was going to have to be committed. Okay? Shane, Stephanie, Triple H are going to have Vinnie Mac committed. Because some of the decisions he has made this year have been outrageous. Obviously, he was high that night or something. But on this night, he actually was 100% sober when he made this decision. A decision that the fans have wanted for a long time. This is the one night he actually listened to the people. So I applaud Vinnie Mac for still having his sanity, still being the wrestling genius. Hopefully he continues to make great decisions going into this draft. Now it looks as if Dean Ambrose, we know the WWE World Title is being split up. I think Jerry the King Lawler, Booker T said it somewhere. Somebody spoke to them, and one of them said that WWE is planning on having a WWE Championship and a World Heavyweight Championship. So they're going to split up the WWE World Title, and they're going to have a WWE Championship, a World Heavyweight Championship, WWE Tag Team titles, World Tag Team titles, the Women's title, the Intercontinental title, United States title, and they're going to bring back the Cruiserweight Championship. So this is all good things heading into the draft. Now they're even talking about they want Kurt Angle, they want Goldberg, they want John Morrison, Carlito, Shelton Benjamin. They want to bring a lot of these talents back. They want Jeff Hardy. I don't know if his contract is up with TNA Wrestling, but maybe, I don't know. But they want him. They don't want Matt and Jeff Hardy. They just want Jeff Hardy. Matt Hardy, I guess he'll stay in TNA. But they only want Jeff Hardy. So hopefully that goes through and it's all put together by the time of the draft, hopefully. Now, this draft has the potential of being the best draft ever. Now, the first draft they did was in 2002. It lasted to 2010, and it ended very horribly. Now that they're doing the draft, now that they're shaking things up once again after all these years, and the draft is going to be next month. I guess it will start on July 11th, and on the 19th, everything will be in place. Shane McMahon going to be the GM for one show, or Stephanie going to be the GM for one show. Personally, I think Ed should be the GM for Raw, Daniel Bryan GM for SmackDown, but that's my opinion. And even if not that, they need to take Stephanie McMahon completely out of the picture. Have her husband Triple H be the GM of SmackDown, Shane GM of Raw. That's a better thing, because it shouldn't just be a beef between Shane and Stephanie. That's not going to go anywhere. It's not like they're going to have a match against each other. WWE is not doing women versus men matches like they used to do in the Attitude Era. And the reason Vince took that away is because when domestic violence started running rapid in the country, WWE had to take that away because they couldn't show women getting beat up by men on TV. It would leave a bad taste in people's mouth. So they can't even do that anymore. So the only logical thing is to have Triple H run SmackDown, Shane run Raw. At least they could actually have some type of match against each other. Maybe a SummerSlam, Survivor Series, leading to WrestleMania. Who knows? Now, it's good now. Dean Ambrose is the champion. It's a great thing. Seth Rollins beat Roman Reigns clean. He beat him clean. Everybody assumed Roman Reigns was going to be champion forever. And if Vince McMahon had still been high, maybe so. But because Vince McMahon didn't have a drink last night, he didn't smoke nothing. He actually made a good decision. If he had been high, Roman would probably still be champion. But because he was sober, he actually was able to think level-headed. And Seth Rollins beat Roman Reigns clean, then Dean Ambrose beat him, and now Dean Ambrose is champion. When the brand split happens, Dean Ambrose will probably be on Raw. He will be the WWE champion. When they split the WWE World title, Dean Ambrose will be WWE champion. And it's rumors going around the match for to crown the new world heavyweight champion of the modern era will be a match at SummerSlam between John Cena and AJ Styles for the new world heavyweight championship. And what I'm thinking is AJ Styles will win because it's been talk of him getting a big push. Hasn't been any discuss of what it would be, but it's been talk of him getting a big push. So this is it. AJ Styles will be the world heavyweight champion representing SmackDown. You have Dean Ambrose as the WWE champion representing Raw. That's a good thing. Now, as far as the WWE Tag Team Championship, since they're already on the New Day, why change that? Keep them on the New Day. Now, the World Tag Team titles, those tag titles need to be on the club. Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson. Let them have a run. Now, you got The Miz as Intercontinental Champion. I don't think that needs to change. He's been doing really good since he's been champion again. In his 5th reign, he's been really good. Miz is now the Miz of old, when he was WWE champion, dominating the WWE. He's now back at that point. So keep the title on him. Rusev's been good in his 2nd reign as United States champion, just like when he debuted. He's back to the same Rusev he used to be. So keep the title on him for now. But you got Charlotte as women's champion. Now, I have said about Charlotte, I didn't like Charlotte at first. I didn't want to like Charlotte. But Charlotte grew on me. Something happened. She grew on me, and now I really like Charlotte. And I see nothing wrong with what she's doing. I see nothing wrong with her being champion, but it's just that I know her reign is not gonna, be forever. And because I'm a bigger supporter of Sasha Banks than I am Charlotte, I know that Sasha Banks has to beat her at some point soon. Now, I don't think that means that Charlotte needs to fade into the background. Charlotte can still have her group, I guess, that which now is going to feature Natalya. And maybe somewhere down the line, Charlotte can get the title back. I don't know. Or she can at least have a really good feud with somebody. Her having a feud with Ronda Rousey at this point might be penciled in at Survivor Series. Ronda Rousey, they're trying to get a deal with her to come in. So Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte might actually happen this year at Survivor Series. That could be Charlotte's next feud after getting out of the women's title picture. She'll have her group. She'll have Natalya and Dana Brooks at ringside with her for this match with Ronda Rousey. Whether she wins or lose, she will look really strong, even in defeat. Now, Sasha Banks is clearly going to get a women's title shot against Charlotte at SummerSlam. This is Sasha Banks' moment. This is when she will finally become champion, because even Trish Stratus, who was the greatest women's champion of her era, said that Sasha Banks is the greatest women's wrestler today in the whole wrestling business. Kurt Angle, who is the greatest wrestler of all time and who is a Hall of Famer just like Trish, said Sasha's the best he's seen. Now, coming from two of the greatest people of all time, that means a whole lot. And a lot of fans and everybody knows she's the best that the wrestling business has. So it's obvious that she will become women's champion soon, and her reign will be very, very long. She might break Nikki Bella's record, who knows, but it's going to be a long reign. So she will hold down the women's division when the draft happens. Now, as far as the Cruiserweight Championship that they're going to bring back, well, there's a lot of people that could be that Cruiserweight champion. There's a lot of people that could be that champion. I'm trying to really think who would be best to hold the title down for a while. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Aiden English. He's actually he's actually in the cruiserweight weight class. I mean, he probably would be a great. Even though he's in a tag team, he would be a great cruiserweight champion. But I personally think Austin Aries should be that cruiserweight champion. I think it should be Austin Aries. Austin Aries, when he was in TNA Wrestling, he was the X Division champion multiple times. He even invented the option C, which allows any X Division competitor to cash in their X Division title for a world heavyweight title shot, which he cashed in, and he actually became world champion with that option. And that option is still happening in TNA now, even though he's no longer there, but he created it because Austin Aries and Chris Jericho are wrestling geniuses. Austin Aries created option C, which is still happening in TNA, even though he's no longer there. Jericho created the Money in the Bank. Those two are wrestling geniuses. They've always had great ideas. They're wrestling geniuses. Now, I personally think WWE, should have some sort of idea like that as well. They can't do option C because TNA has it, but they have to do something kind of like that, but not exactly. But it has to be a way where, because cruiserweights typically do not get a shot at the world title, so it has to be a way that, the cruiserweight champion could cash in the cruiserweight championship, and then they have another tournament or something to crown a new cruiserweight champion. But the cruiserweight champion, at some point, at some pay-per-view, will cash in the cruiserweight championship for a world heavyweight or WWE championship match. And then if they win, then they'll crown a new cruiserweight champion at the same event. Something like that has to happen in WWE. Something like that. Just like when WWE did the Asylum match. It reminds you kind of TNA's Lethal Lockdown match. It was exactly like that. Except WWE couldn't call it Lethal Lockdown, so they called it the Asylum match. So really, WWE could actually use the same idea, option C. They just can't call it option C. They have to call it something else, but they could use the actual same idea. It's like they use the Lethal Lockdown idea, but they called it the Asylum match. But it's obvious that it was the same match. But WWE could actually call the option C something else. Use the same thing, but just call it something else. And there would be no kind of lawsuit from TNA if they did that. They could just call it something else. Just like there's not going to be any lawsuit about the Asylum match because they didn't call it Lethal Lockdown. So they could do something like that, but don't call it option C. You just can't come up with some WWE type name for it. Call it something else. But at this particular pay-per-view, that cruiserweight champion will cash in for a world heavyweight or WWE championship match. If they win, then a new cruiserweight champion will also be crowned later that night at that pay-per-view. And then the next year, when that pay-per-view happens again, the cruiserweight champion at that time will get a chance to be the WWE or World Heavyweight Champion. That's a concept that WWE will need to use in this coming draft. It will be a great concept, be something new, something fresh. But Austin Aries needs to be the first ever cruiserweight champion coming out of this. Now, WWE also said they're going to hire Rey Mysterio back. They want to hire Rey Mysterio back. Now, Rey Mysterio was the greatest cruiserweight champion ever in wrestling. He has had, I think, like 10 or 12 cruiserweight championship reigns. So there's no better cruiserweight than Rey Mysterio. So Rey Mysterio and Austin Aries having a match for the cruiserweight title, that's a box office draw there. That's a main event. Not even, and even though it's just a cruiserweight championship match, that is a main event caliber match there. That's a dream match. Austin Aries was the greatest X Division champion. And then you have Rey Mysterio, greatest cruiserweight champion. A match that has never ever taken place. That will be a great thing that will take place. If Austin Aries becomes the first ever cruiserweight champion, then Rey Mysterio comes back into the company. This match is set. I don't know, maybe Survivor Series, maybe even at WrestleMania. This match is set, and will change the game in the cruiserweight division in WWE in this modern era. It doesn't matter who wins that match. It will be a phenomenal match. Now, ultimately, I think when it gets to that certain pay-per-view and an option C or whatever WWE wants to call it comes in, Austin Aries should be the first one to keep the cruiserweight title until that event. Then he cashes in for a world heavyweight title or WWE championship match. He becomes the WWE champion, world heavyweight champion. A new cruiserweight champion is crowned later that night, and if they can hold on to it for another year, then they can cash in, or whoever has it by the time of that next pay-per-view. But now you got Austin Aries, a cruiserweight, as the world heavyweight or WWE champion. And then you have a new cruiserweight champion. If he can hold on to it for a year, has the option to become champion at that next pay per view the next following year, or whoever the cruiserweight champion at the time. So this is a great thing with this new brand split. Other things that need to be added later on. It would be good for WWE to have a women's tag team division, have women's tag titles, since there's a lot of women there now, and there's more women coming in. They can have a women's tag team division, have a set of women's tag titles. That would be a great thing. WWE having a television championship would be great. They don't necessarily need to bring back the European title or any of those kind of hardcore title, none of that. But have a television championship. That would be great. Have women's tag titles. That would be great. Have a women's Money in the Bank ladder match, which Vince actually considered doing at this year's Money in the Bank, but maybe he didn't do it because he was high that night. I don't know. So he just said, I'm gonna go ahead and smoke this blunt. I ain't gonna even make the decision tonight. We're not gonna do that. But you know what? Whenever he's clean and sober, he sobers up. Maybe next year at Money in the Bank, that match may happen. The first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match. It would be a great concept. Whichever woman becomes the first ever women's Money in the Bank, she can cash in on the women's champion for up to a year. It'd be a great concept like you see with the male wrestlers. Maybe she'll knock one of the women out with the briefcase. Who knows how the women would do it. Maybe the same way, maybe some way different. Knock another woman out with the briefcase, give it to the ref, cash in, become the new women's champion. It's a great concept. Any woman at this point could be women's champion. Hell, you could have somebody like Rosa Mendez become a women's champion, which is something no one thought would ever be possible. Anything would be possible with that. Any woman could actually have a chance to be women's champion now. And she never would have had a chance before. So hopefully next year they do go forward with that idea, have the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and they do the same thing for the women that they do for the men with that concept. Now, there is there was one time AJ Lee, I think it was Paige, did an interview about women's wrestlers possibly wanting to do a Hell in a Cell match or be in an elimination chamber. They said they feel they could be ready for this kind of thing. I don't know, but maybe it's not off the table. Now, I don't think all women's wrestlers could do that kind of thing. Charlotte, Paige, Sasha Banks, sure, Bayley, they could do that kind of thing. Somebody like Eva Marie, Summer Rae, I don't think they would be able to do that kind of. I don't think they'd be able to handle that. But women's wrestlers who are more experienced, like Charlotte, Dana Brooke, I think they could handle being in an elimination chamber. I think they could handle being in Hell in a Cell. Just Eva Marie, Summer Rae, they just wouldn't be able to handle it. Somebody like Alexa Bliss, Carmella, no, they wouldn't be able to handle it. But there's certain women's wrestlers that would be able to handle it. You bring Trish Stratus back on the roster, you bring Lita, yeah, they can handle it. But the rest of them, no. There's only certain ones that will be able to be in that elimination chamber and in that Hell in a Cell. And who knows, maybe at some point they may go ahead and give it a run, see what happens. But personally, if there's not going to be some general managers like Edge and Daniel Bryan or something like that, and it's just going to be a Triple H, Shane Stephanie type of deal, then leave Stephanie out of it. Just leave her out of it, please. Because in the other draft they did years ago, it was a time where Vince basically was running Raw and SmackDown. Shane and Stephanie didn't like it, so basically Shane bought WCW, Stephanie bought ECW, and they went against Vince. And ultimately what happened was Vince ended up owning both WCW, ECW, and WWE. He owned all of it. So, this time, now you got Shane and Stephanie in charge of Raw. There's a draft coming up. So I don't know, but I think Stephanie just needs to she just needs to go sit on the board of directors and do that. She needs to have her husband Triple H be the general manager of SmackDown. Shane be the general manager of Raw. Have this be a Shane versus Triple H type of thing instead of a Shane versus Stephanie thing. That's not. It's not like it's going to lead into a match or something. So there's no point of that. Just have it be Shane versus Triple H type of thing, because at least they can have a match against each other. Maybe at SummerSlam or Survivor Series or WrestleMania, they could have a match. Maybe possibly for control of both shows, or maybe even of the whole WWE, depending on where Vince will fit in with that idea. Now, and then you got the pay-per-views. They're saying that there's going to be 2 pay-per-views every month from now on. One for Raw, one for SmackDown. Yeah, that's a whole lot of pay-per-views. But if you got some free time, go ahead and check them out. Now, that's 2 pay-per-views every month. One for Raw, one for SmackDown. Great. But if they don't have a lot of wrestlers on Raw in this when the draft comes, they don't have a lot of wrestlers on SmackDown, there's no point of still having a 3-hour Raw. You need to drop that back down to 2 hours, just like SmackDown. Because now they're basically trying to fill that last hour, and they're not doing good at doing it. And either if they don't have a ton of superstars filled up on both shows for the draft, drop Raw back to 2 hours. Just like SmackDown. At least you will be able to put on some decent matches in those 2 hours, because when it comes to that third hour, you wouldn't know what to do. Then that's when Vince starts putting people like Heath Slater and Curtis Axel in matches, and it's just horrible. You put Goldust and R-Truth out there, and that's just horrible. As a matter of fact, Goldust, R-Truth, Tyler Breeze, Fandango, Heath Slater, Curtis Axel, they should be strictly on main event and superstar. They shouldn't be anywhere near Raw or SmackDown, and that's just the truth. No one wants to see him. Bring Jack Swagger back. We'd rather see him. Bring him back. Matter of fact, Curtis Axel, he still could have a career if you get him away from Heath Slater. Make him just like you made him when Paul Heyman was his manager. Let him be that Curtis Axel again. The Curtis Axel who was Intercontinental Champion. Let him be that guy again. And everybody want to see him. Want to see Jack Swagger. Nobody wants to see Heath Slater. And Bo Dallas, I believe Bo Dallas, he could have a career, but you need to team him up with his brother Bray Wyatt. You need to put him in the Wyatt family. You need to put Bo Dallas in the Wyatt family with his brother Bray. It's the only thing that makes sense. You need to put, even though Baron Corbin is known as the Lone Wolf, he looks like what the Wyatt family is. So you just put him in there too. And Eric Young, he looks similar to what the Wyatt family is as well. You put him in there. They're all a bunch of lunatics. Put them together. And then you got Sarah Lee, who's in NXT. Obviously, it's obvious she's going to debut as Sister Abigail, because Bray Wyatt has hinted that his sister Abigail is going to debut. Sarah Lee is the only NXT women's wrestler that fits the Sister Abigail gimmick. She fits what Sister Abigail would be. Her real life is that. When she showed how her real life is, she's Sister Abigail. That's her. That's her real life. She fits what that would be. The other women's wrestlers in NXT do not fit what Sister Abigail would be. She fits it to a T. She has the ring gear for it. She has the personality. She fits what Sister Abigail would be. She's the only one who should be Sister Abigail. Now, you have her to be Sister Abigail. She does the finishing move, the Sister Abigail, just like Bray, but she does it in her own twist, her own way. Even though Bray says some crazy stuff, the fans love it. That he sounds like a complete lunatic. It's interesting. They love it. They always chant for Bray. Now the fans will chant for Sarah Lee. She's gonna have to say some crazy stuff, to pull this off. Her doing the Sister Abigail finisher, her being Sister Abigail. She's also gonna have to say some crazy stuff on the mic, just like Bray does, and people are gonna love it. Every time she comes out to the ring, they're gonna chant Abby, Abby, Abby. They're gonna love it. She'll be what Bray Wyatt is to the division. She'll be to the women's division. She'll be this kind of lunatic type chick that says crazy stuff, but the fans go nuts for it. And I've even said that her first feud could be against Paige because in NXT, her and Paige had a little bit of friction when Sarah Lee was trying to get into WWE before she actually got the contract. They had a little bit of friction. WWE could build on that again. You know, have that to be her first feud. Maybe she can get the win over Paige. Maybe not. But she'll look good in defeat if she doesn't beat Paige in that feud. Maybe this could lead to her eventually being women's champion but at that point, all members of the Wyatt family would have to have gold at this point, or at least almost all of them. Wyatt family hasn't had any championships despite the fact that they're really dominant as a group. Now, at some point, they got all the gold. I don't know if you put them on SmackDown. You have Bray Wyatt as world champion. You have Luke. You have Luke Harper and Eric Rowan as tag champions. You could have Eric Young as the cruiserweight champion. You could have Baron Corbin as, depending on if the Intercontinental or United States title was on SmackDown or Raw, he can hold that down. Then you have Braun Strowman. I don't think he needs any championships, to be honest. He doesn't need any. But you can have them with championships, and then you can have Sarah Lee be women's champion at this point. Maybe that's a direction they can go somewhere down the line. And I think it would be great if Miz could be world champion for the second time in his career doing this current brand split of this new era. This will also be an opportunity for Kofi Kingston to finally get to the level everybody knew he could get to and be world champion for the first time in his career. This is a perfect opportunity to correct that wrong that they didn't do in the other brand split. So this is a chance for history to be made. For Vince to get everything right this time. Because he really screwed things up from 2002 to 2010 brand split. He screwed everything up. But it's a chance to get it right. Now, what Vince does have to expect with this current brand split, though, because just like any old brand split, that is when WCW and ECW joined together to try to run Vince out of business. Now, you still got other companies, like you got Global Force, you got TNA, you got Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is actually not completely horrible. TNA, well, kind of horrible, but they look like they might be going in a new direction now. But Global Force is basically like a bingo hall or a house show. It's not going anywhere. But if Ring of Honor and TNA start to become a threat to WWE, and it looked like they could, and they join forces, Vince is going to have yet another war on his hands. This time with Ring of Honor and TNA. Now, hopefully, at least I have no doubt WWE will still come out on top. They're not going to lose a war to Ring of Honor and TNA. It's just not going to happen. Nobody's beating WWE because WWE is the flagship of wrestling. Nobody's going to run WWE out of business. But it'll be interesting for people to think that might happen. Now, at this point, Ring of Honor will be crushed. So with TNA, WWE will own both, just like they did with WCW and ECW in the first brand split. This time, they will own Ring of Honor and TNA, meaning that now you will have a chance for there to be. Now, of course, WWE would not use a lot of championships from Ring of Honor because they would already have most of these championships already. And not going to use most of TNA's championships. It's one championship they probably would use. This would be the perfect time for them to create a new women's championship in WWE. And they would use TNA's Knockouts Championship and have a WWE Women's Knockouts Championship, a second title for the women. And WWE would then have control of Ring of Honor's matches as well as TNA's matches. So maybe there could be an Elevation X match in WWE, Ultimate X match. It was another match. I can't even think of the match that they had before, but you can have a Lethal Lockdown style type match. Even though WWE owns the rights to WCW and ECW right now, they have not used that opportunity to use any of their old matches. I do not know why WWE has not done a 3-tier cage match. They own the rights to it, and they haven't done it. That match was WCW's greatest match. And since they own the rights to ECW and WCW now, they should use that match in WWE. This is what needs to happen. WWE at some point needs to have the first ever 3-tier cage match in WWE for either the WWE or the World Heavyweight Championship. It will be great. It will change the face of WWE. Now, I know most of the NXT talent will be called up for the brand split. Old wrestlers have been invited to sign new contracts. WWE wants Ronda Rousey. They want a few other UFC people for the draft. So this is going to be great. And they already have a bunch of NXT people who have yet to sign contracts ready to replace the NXT people that will come up to the main roster. So this is a great thing. Now, with WWE possibly taking over Ring of Honor and TNA Wrestling at some point during this new modern era draft, you have a lot of TNA wrestlers now on the roster. You have a lot of Ring of Honor wrestlers now on the roster. And since Global Force is basically just a bingo hall, they'll come on in too. So basically, at that point, WWE would own it all. And Vince said about 6 years ago, WWE will be the only wrestling company left. He said it. Now, he was not playing. And this is exactly what this draft is about. For him to get the other wrestling companies that he didn't get in the draft before. Now he's gonna take Ring of Honor, he's gonna take Global Force and TNA, and it's done. There will be no other wrestling companies. WWE will be the last company standing. And this will be the perfect time for Triple H, and Shane to have a match, possibly at SummerSlam. I don't know, no holds bar or something, for control of the whole company. A Survivor Series, they could have another match, Hell in a Cell, for control of the company. Of course, Triple H will win both times. Eventually, this leads to Triple H basically running WWE, him and Stephanie, being chairman and CEO. Vince shows back up in the picture, threatens to fire them both. Then Vince gives full control of SmackDown to Triple H, full control of Raw to Shane, while he stays chairman as long as he wants. But he no longer comes back on screen ever. He lets them hold things down. Now, I think now that there's going to be a World Championship, WWE Championship again, next year's Money in the Bank pay-per-view, there will be a Raw Money in the Bank for the WWE Championship. There will be a SmackDown Money in the Bank for the World Heavyweight Championship. This will be the perfect opportunity for Kofi Kingston to finally win a Money in the Bank and win his first world title. An opportunity for someone else who had never won Money in the Bank to win and be WWE champion. And then throw in a women's Money in the Bank for the women's championship. Maybe an opportunity for someone like Summer Rae, Eva Marie, somebody that you never thought would ever be a women's champion, to get an opportunity to be women's champion. So this is some great things getting ready to take place if Vince does it right this time, because he really screwed up in the first one. So he has to get everything right, and the people will be happy. Now, what Vince did last night, he gave the people what they wanted. He actually, for the first time, he actually listened to the fans and gave them what they wanted. And really, Vince should always listen to the fans. I mean, we're the ones buying the T-shirts, the action figures, the WWE Network, all this stuff, putting money in his pocket. The least he can do is give us the matches we want to see. the least he can do is put people in championship matches that we want to see. And I think WWE should also bring back the pay-per-view concept like they had in the first draft, Taboo Tuesday or Cyber Sunday, where the fans choose which superstars get to be in the matches, which superstars get championship matches. They need to bring that interactive fan pay-per-view back so that there will be a chance for fans to pick superstars to be champions, that superstars that would never have gotten championship matches before, but now they will have the chance to because fans chose them. Because personally, when they had that Cyber Sunday or maybe it was Taboo Tuesday, when Miz actually won and became and he actually got an ECW championship match. See, I never told anybody this, but despite Miz having a silly gimmick at that time, and I knew he came from the real world and the Road Rules Challenge and all that kind of stuff, I knew the Miz could be something great in WWE. I knew it. So what I did when I did the vote, I actually voted for Miz like 100 or maybe like 1,000 times that day to make sure he gets the vote. And when I looked at the pay-per-view and they did the voting and I realized the Miz actually got the vote, I voted enough to make sure he gets the vote. And the look on fans' faces, they were like, wait a minute, what the hell? Miz gets a title shot? Even the announcers, people that were standing next to the Miz, they were like, what, the Miz gets a title shot? Are you people insane? Even Miz looked like, wait a minute, I got a title shot. And then all of a sudden, Miz gets the title shot. He does really good. He doesn't win the title, but he does really good in the match. And that's when Vince saw something different. He actually saw something in the Miz that night. Because Vince didn't think the fans were going to vote in Miz. No way he thought that. But the fans voted in Miz, or maybe I voted enough. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's what happened. But he was voted in. Everybody was shocked that he even got the title shot. And Vince started to realize maybe Miz could be a great asset to the company. And that's when Vince started pushing the Miz. And eventually Miz became WWE champion eventually somewhere down the line. And now he's a 5-time Intercontinental champion. He's been Money in the Bank and all these things. And if it wasn't for that night of him getting his first ever world title match, none of what he's accomplished now would have ever happened because Vince wouldn't have saw anything in him. And he'd pretty much be out of here like John Morrison was. So that night changed his career.